Our next guest on the pod is a local runner from Andover, Massachusetts. Every year on his birthday, he runs his age in miles. He was the valedictorian at Merrimack College. He's run across America. He's run up the East Coast. He's competed in Ironman World Championships. He's run in the World Marathon Challenge, and along with many of his amazing running accomplishments, he has raised millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars for the Jimmy Fund. Around here, he's known as the race director for a little run-a-thon called the Boston Marathon, and we're so excited to have Dave McGillivray on the On the Runs podcast. Dave, welcome.
Thank you, Eric. You just gave my speech, so anybody have any questions? I'm done.
We have a ton of questions for you, Dave.
You read it just like I wrote it. Thank you very much. All good. Great to be here. I appreciate the opportunity. And I met Erica at a race in New Hampshire a couple months ago in the parking lot. So it's great to see you again, Erica. You never know when you're going to meet people.
Thank you for humoring me that day, by the way. I was like, oh my God, I think that's Dave McGillivray. So I had to kind of shoot my shot, like they say. And I had to go up to you and introduce. Well, I didn't even introduce myself at first. I just told you more about the podcast. And then I saw you again after the race. And I was like, okay, here's my name. Nice to actually meet you. And then we went from there. So thank you for agreeing to come on and talk to us. I mean, we're gonna have a blast today. And I mean, we did just barely cover the surface of your running career, but yeah, we have so much we want to talk about.
Sure, let it rip. I'm ready.
That's right. When we first connected through email, you sent me all this information, and you liked my little intro, but there was so much. I don't know. There's no way we can cover all of it, but all the info you sent me, I was just amazed. I knew who you were. I've seen you on TV, mostly on the Boston Marathon when you're on CBS or NBC's Channel 7, and I see you on the TV. I never knew about all these other amazing things you do, anything from all the money you've raised all the way to you do the you help support or run the race up Mount Washington, which is I love Mount Washington. It's one of my favorite places in the world, and that race is a bucket list event for me. I've hiked that mountain. I've skied that mountain. I've done everything on that mountain but run up the auto road or bike up one day, though, one day. But let's talk about you, Dave. Andover, Massachusetts. You were born and raised in Massachusetts, right?
Yeah, Medford, Mass. Grew up in Medford, Mass, not too far outside of Boston, 7 miles or so. But I actually live in North Andover now, not Andover, but yeah, I moved up here about 35 years ago.
I'll let you go, Erica.
So can we get into your history of running a little bit? You had sent us a video about how much of an influence your grandfather was on running the big races, but how did you start running altogether?
Well, for me, growing up in Boston, I was mesmerized by sports, Patriots, Celtics, Red Sox, Bruins, and how could you not, living here in Boston. And so my dream as a young boy was to be a professional athlete. And as the story goes, I worked really hard. I was at the park all the time during the summer, shooting hoops, playing in the park league, baseball and tennis and running and street hockey and basketball and flag football, everything. Sports was my life. And then I started, trying out for teams, and I made the Little League teams because everyone got accepted when you went out for Little League. But then when I got into high school, I tried out for high school basketball, high school baseball, and I got cut. And it was just a hard feeling of being rejected. That's what I learned at a young age, is the concept of rejection and how debilitating that can be, especially when you think you have the skill set, but you're not tall enough, and that was my challenge. I was vertically challenged, and it was just a hard thing to overcome. And I remember when I got cut from the basketball team, the coach comes up to me, puts his arm around me, looks down at me. Everyone looked down at me. And he said, "Dave, if you were 5 inches taller, you'd be my starting guard."
Well, that doesn't help.
What? I was 5 inches taller. I thought it had to do with ability level, coach. And so I challenged the center to one-on-one in front of the guys who made the team. He was 6'5", and I was 5'4", .387 on a good day. And I beat him. And I threw the ball off the court, and I walked away. And at the ripe old age, about 15, I said to myself then I would never, ever, ever allow anyone to tell me I wasn't good enough, that I didn't belong. So I went home that night, and I put a sign over my bed, and the sign said, "Please, God, make me grow." Well, he must have been on vacation or answering someone else's prayer, because he didn't make me grow. Or did he make me grow? Because he made me grow in so many other ways, morally and ethically and spiritually and intellectually and mentally and internally. And that's what I learned, is who you are inside, not who you are physically necessarily. And that's when I started to run, because no one can catch you from running. You can just go run. And I started running. And, since then I've run 165,000 miles. I've run 166 marathons. I've run across the country a couple of times, up the East Coast, done 24-hour runs, done the World Marathon Majors, run my age on my birthday. And it's all about just setting goals and not limits. It's all about challenging myself, not to prove anyone else wrong. And, these are things I do for me to make me feel good about me. Because when I was growing up, like I said, I didn't feel too good about me because of being rejected, my involvement in running and my running career.
What was it on your 12th birthday, though, that got you to do, what was it on your 12th birthday that got you to say, hey, I'm going to run 12 miles? And then when did you say, I was going to do it again next year on my 13th?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I lived right near a pond called Spot Pond in Medford, right off of Route 93. And that morning I just get up and ran to the pond and ran around and ran back. That was 6 miles, just to get a workout in. And then, during the day, cake and ice cream, whatever. And I just said later on in the day, I think I'll run around the pond again. And I just ran around the pond, and it just hit me. It was, just an epiphany that I had run 12 miles on my 12th birthday. And so that was it. I just kind of walked away from that thinking that was cool, a coincidence. But then all of a sudden my 13th birthday come, and I remembered what I did on my 12th birthday. So I said, what the heck, I'll see if I can run 13. And I ran 13, and then 14 and 15 and 16. And I just kept on doing it. And finish line of the marathon, ran to the start, turned around, ran all the way back, and then ran into Fenway Park in front of 32,000 people on my birthday, just celebrating 54 miles at that time. When I turned 60, I ran 60 miles. And so I just kept this personal goal of mine alive. And it's like a connection with the past. It's something that I can do for me again. A lot of people say to me all the time, what's the toughest part about running a marathon? And the toughest part is signing the application, right? Is having the guts to make the commitment. But then something else has to happen. You have to earn the right to do it. And that's what my grandfather taught me. And then you earn the right, you do the work, you toe the line, you answer the gun, you run the course, you cross the finish line, you get a medal, and magic happens. You go home feeling good about yourself. And there's nothing more powerful in this world than to feel good about yourself, because it's the very foundation by which we accomplish everything in our lives, right? I constantly, years and years ago, used to be asked, what do you do for a living? And I said, what do I do for a living? Yeah, what do you do for work? I said, I don't. They said, you don't work? I said, no. And they said, you got 5 kids. How do you support 5 kids if you don't work? I said, well, I don't consider what I do work. I love what I do so much that I don't consider it work. But I guess you could say and I used to mumble, I'm a race director. They're like, what? I said, I'm a race director. They're like, a race director? What do they do? Chalk marking the road, yell go? I said, well, yeah, I guess so. And now when people ask me, what do I do for a living? I say, I help raise the level of self-esteem and self-confidence of tens of thousands of people in America. Because that's what we do. We give people a chance in life to set a goal, work hard, earn the right, and accomplish something, and go home feeling good about themselves. So when I was 17 years old, I had heard about the Boston Marathon. I heard about it a couple of years before that when Ron Hill won in 1970. I was so impressed with what he had accomplished, set a course record in the rain, fixed his car or something, and we were listening to the marathon on the radio. And I turned to him. I was 15 years old, and I said, Dad, someday I'm going to run that race. And I just woke up, when I was 17, I was a senior in high school, and I just said, I'm going to go run the marathon. So I called my grandfather up, who was a supporter of my athleticism, and I said, Grandpa, I'm going to go run that race in Boston. He goes, oh, they call that the Boston Marathon. I said, oh, well, that's a good name for it. I'm going to go run it. He said, well, I'll meet you at Coolidge Corner. I said, great, where's that? He said, oh, at the 24-mile point. I said, okay. He lived right near there. He could just walk over there. My brother drives me to the start. I guess you could say I was a bandit because you had to be 18 and I was only 17, but I still wanted to run it. So I jumped in and ran it. And I got as far as the hills in Newton, and bam, down I go. And I got taken to the Newton Wellesley Hospital in an ambulance. I got to the hospital, called my parents, said, can you come pick me up? They said, where are you? I said, I'm in the hospital. What are you doing there? Never mind. Just come pick me up. They picked me up, drove me home, called my grandfather, no answer, called him again, no answer. 9 o'clock at night, he answered the phone. I said, Grandpa, where have you been? He goes, Dave, where have you been? I've been waiting for you all night. Old man Kelly goes by, street sweepers go by. He said, what? I said, I quit, Grandpa. He goes, nah, you didn't fail. I said, no, what'd I do? He said, you learned. I said, great, what'd I learn? You learn that you cannot go along in life and set reckless goals. You had no business being in that race, and you know it. I said, yeah, you're right. He said, I'll cut another deal with you. I said, what? He says, you train for that next year. There's a novelty. Train for it. And I'll be there waiting for you. And I said, okay, fine. 2 months later, my grandfather died. So I said, I got to do this. I got to do this for Grandpa. So I was 18. I was running 120, 130 miles a week back then. And I entered officially. And the day before the race, I got sick. And my parents said, you can't run. I said, I have to run. The newspapers are saying, Dave running in memory of grandfather. They said, you're too sick. And I said, can you give me something that very few other people have ever given me before? What's that? A chance. And you just give me a chance. Isn't that all we ever want in life? All of us, a chance to accomplish something. They said, okay. They drove me to the start. I take off. I'm running. Ugh, it was awful. I was scraping the bottom of the barrels. 5 miles. I was ready to, cash it in. And all of a sudden, at the halfway point, I see my parents. And there's my mother. And what's she doing? She's crying. Why? Because that's what mothers do. They cry. Because she's going through more pain than I'll ever go through worrying about me because she knew how sick I was. But then there's my father. What's he doing? He's taking pictures of my mother crying. I keep going. I got to the point where I dropped out the year before. I'm doing a survivor shuffle over the hills. I got through that. Finally at 21.5, bam, down I go again. Dropped out of my second Boston Marathon in a row. Now, I just got through telling you I wanted to be an athlete. And I get cut from everything. I'm the last pick when my friends pick sides. I drop out of my first Boston, drop out of my second Boston. I'm sitting on the curb at 21.5, head in my hands going, this wasn't meant to be. It's not in the cards. Forget it. And all of a sudden, a defining moment happened in my life, another one. And I turned around and I saw my grandfather's tombstone. And I had dropped out right in front of the Evergreen Cemetery, and it's right on the Boston Marathon course. And I didn't know that at the time when they buried him, because I had never got that far. And I said, son of a gun, he kept his end of the deal. I have to keep my end of the deal. So I picked myself up, and I finished 1973, April 1973, my first marathon, my first Boston Marathon, official one, and I finished in 4.5 hours. And I said to myself on that day, I was 18, I'm going to run this race every year for the rest of my life in honor and tribute of the lesson my grandfather taught me about earning the right to do this. And I've finished every marathon since, and I've run Boston now for the last 50 years in a row.
That's right, 50 years. So 52 in total, but you've completed 50.
Well, my first one was unofficial, so I don't even count that. Wipe that out. And so in '73, I did my first official, finished, and I've run every one since. So 50 official in a row.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And we can get into later, but 30 something of those you've done at night.
Yes.
So that goes to tell us how long you've been directing the marathon. Who gave you the opportunity to start that? Like, how did you get into actually race directing?
Well, I had run across the United States in 1978, and then when I finished that run, I opened up a athletic footwear and clothing store in my hometown of Medford. And then I started putting on events to promote the store and realized I like putting on events more than shoes on people's feet. Mm-hmm. So I created DMSE Sports, and when no one else had businesses like that in America practically. And I just felt I could earn a living by putting on events. No one believed me at the time, but I started putting on a lot of events, triathlons in particular. I had just done the Ironman triathlon in Hawaii in 1980, and so I started building up my business. And then in 1987, there was a significant situation at Boston at the start where there was a wheelchair accident, and a lot of chairs went down, and there was a rope tripping incident at the start where they shot the gun at high noon, and they still had the rope up at the start, and tripping and whatnot. So the BAA sort of said, well, we probably should hire somebody to kind of look at this a little closer next year. And, you know, they sort of advertised a position of technical director, and I applied for it and got it. And it was a tough decision to make to take the job, because I was like, oh, how can I take the job and still run in the marathon? Like, that's probably not going to work. And I had made a commitment to run it every year for the rest of my life. But I can't give up this opportunity to help direct the marathon. Like, who gets that chance? Mm-hmm. So I took the job, but in the back of my head, I knew I could figure something out. And I was standing at the finish line of the marathon that year, 1988, having just directed the start and ridden on the lead vehicle to the finish, and I'm high-fiving all the runners. But I kind of was full of self-pity because I hadn't run it, you know. And even though I was happy for everyone, I was sad for me. And so I said, to heck with it. And I tapped a state police trooper on the shoulder who I knew. And I said, officer, will you do me a favor? And he said, what? I said, will you drive me back to the start? He goes, why? Did you forget something? I said, yeah, I forgot to run. So he drove me back at 8 o'clock at night. I started by myself and ran the whole thing. And finished at 11 o'clock at night, dead last. And that's the way I've done it for the last 35 years at night. And so this year, April will be my 36th at night and my 51st. And my hope is that I'd be able to jump in next year with all the runners and run it again with 30,000 people instead of 3. And so we'll see how that goes.
Next year, 2024.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that would be so cool. I think it's so cool that you do that. So you don't know this, but you're pointing at Erica here, a girl who's about to direct her first ever race coming up about a month after Boston. I said to her, I'm going to be there. I'm going to help her out, whether it's hold a sign that says turn left or turn around here. I said, I'll help you out. But after I go, do you want to celebrate or do you want to go run the 10-miler? I was like, let's be like Dave. Let's go run the 10-miler, then celebrate. So I don't know if I've turned her yet, but...
Do it.
I absolutely would run it because it is one of my favorite races. I'm taking it over from a local business in the area. It's called Total Image, and they just do a 10-miler and 10K every year. And I've run it for the past 5 years. They've been doing it for a little bit longer, and they offered it up to me. I'm still getting some assistance with them because this is my first time. And I'm like, I love this race so much. It's just like, it's scenic and it's easy and it's just a nice time. So I'm hoping I can get to run it after. But if he's in, I will take you up on that offer.
I can only say, when I first started it, I was in my 30s, and I'm not saying it was easy, but it was easier than it seems to be now. I mean, I'm up at, well, first of all, leading up to the race, it's Crazyville because you're focused on everyone else but you. So you're not you're breaking all the rules for yourself. And then all of a sudden race day comes and you're up at like 3 a.m. I'm out at the start at like 4 or 5 on my feet. Then I'm on a motor scooter for 2 hours leading the pack. And then I'm back on my feet again for 3-4 hours. And then get driven back out there and everyone's pretty much done and you haven't even started yet. And then it's getting dark and it's just, you haven't eaten and the whole bit. So the point is that it's hard.
I was going to ask about the food and how what you do during the race day to run a marathon, but do you plan on prepping at all, like nutrition before that, or you just go?
I try, but it's not as simple as it looks because you're working, right? I mean, I can't be eating a ham sandwich while I'm lining up 30,000 people and media from all over the world is booming in on you, and like you're there, like, you know, having a banana and a Gatorade
I'd give
or
you
something.
props for that. I would thoroughly enjoy that. Just seeing you on the sidelines like eating a sandwich. Like, yes, you got to get your food in.
Yeah. I know, but you know, it's at that point, it's not about me, right? It can't be. So I have to be totally focused on the job and making sure this goes well. And then once I check out, I'm off the job, then I can focus on me. But by then it's a little late. you know, it's like I didn't do a lot of the right things. So it's going to be a long, long day.
While we're talking about Boston right now, when you're on the scooter, what is your job? Because I'm picturing, I've done a couple Ironmans, and I remember like a referee on the scooter coming by, and I'm like, oh my God, am I drafting? Am I doing something wrong? Are they watching me? What is your job when you're on the scooter?
Yeah. Well, it's certainly not officiating the event. I'm not a race official per se. But for me, it's two things. It's not out there to watch the race like I want to watch the men's race or the women's race and I got a front seat. That's not why I'm out there. You know, and part of me is like, there's 30,000 people in the event. Every one of them is just as important as the other one. And even though it's kind of fun to see the race up front and them duke it out, you know, that's again not what I'm most interested in. For me, it's two things. One is to be a little ahead of the race. A lot of times I'm not even watching the race. I'm further ahead of it. And just make sure that everything is okay as we approach each city and town along the way, that the fluid stations are set up properly, the special pro athlete fluid stations are set up properly, the timing mats are all there, course crowd control, barricades, signage, timing mats. I mean, the list goes on and on and on as to what's out on the course. So if anything was, amiss, I might have an opportunity to fix it, right, along the way. But the other one is more observation, because once the race is over, you get feedback from all the team captains and people throughout the entire event telling you, what they saw and experienced and what needs to be improved and stuff. So for me personally, if I'm the race director, ideally, I'd like to see as much as possible with the event that I can, so that I can personally critique it too. Or if someone says, well, such and such happened out there. And I said, yeah, I know, I saw it myself, and so now I have more of an appreciation for how to go about making it better for the next time. And, a case can be made that I might be the only person in the entire event that pretty much sees everything. Like I'm at the start, I see the athletes village, I go into the pro athlete holding area, the wheelchair holding area, I'm over here, I'm over there, I'm all over the place. And then the gun fires and I'm off and I see the entire course. And then when I'm done, I get off the scooter and I walk the entire finish area, all the fluid stations and the food and the blankets and the medals, and then of course the medical tents, and I'm in there talking to the medical directors and whatnot, and all of that. I see the brake tape hold, all of it, right? And so I'm very fortunate that I get to see it all. And so one thing about my run at night is it's like the calm after the storm. I start thinking about next year and what can we do to improve upon things and how I'm going to change this and that. All of a sudden I'm in Wellesley and I don't even remember I just started, because I'm so focused on what just happened throughout the day. Yeah.
That's kind of a great distraction, honestly.
Very much so. Yeah, it is.
So you start planning for the next Boston Marathon immediately after you like the running of
No.
it, or how much
No.
time do you
No.
have? Like, well, obviously you have the
No.
year, but when do you
No,
officially start the next year's planning?
maybe 2 or 3 months before the event that's coming up. We've already started planning 2024 now because
Wow, so it's
a
even
lot
longer than
has
I thought.
well, yeah, a lot of people think, oh, do you start planning next year's race the day after? I say no, about 2 months before the existing race, because there's so much that goes on leading up to the event that you might say, oh, that didn't go that well, whether it's race packet stuffing or whatever it might be, certain meetings or whatever. And all of a sudden you're saying, well, next year we're going to do it this way. All of a sudden you're already planning for next year, and this year hasn't even started yet. So I honestly think it takes about 15 months or 16 months to, plan an event. Not 12 or 10 or 8 or 6, but like more than a year. At least that's how I operate.
I'm so impressed. But the scale of the Boston Marathon is just huge. So I understand having to have so much time to get it done and get it done safely.
Yeah.
To go back to the scooter, you probably don't remember this one, but when you passed the mile 2 aid station, or fluid station as you call it, there was a girl there last year, a flamingo headband. That was her, and she'll be wearing it again this year when she's on the course cheering people on. Yeah, so
right.
just look for the flamingo headband.
I will.
But isn't there a story where some guy yelled at you like, "Hey, why don't you run?" or "Why aren't you running?" And then you ran by later and you're like, "Where are you?"
Yeah, that was actually the first year on the job. What happened was, so I got everyone off safely, but now that everyone's going, I couldn't get on a lead vehicle. So I waited for everyone to cross the starting line. You got to remember, back then, 6 years ago, there were only like 7,000 people in the race. So it didn't take that long for everyone to cross the starting line. But once everyone crossed the starting line, I got in a state trooper's cruiser, and they took me the back way and drove me to Natick at the 10-mile point. So then when the lead vehicles are coming by, they pulled over and I jumped in one of them. So I was able to ride the last 16 miles with the lead vehicle package from Natick in. But when I was going through like Wellesley or something, this guy's on the side of the road, smoking a cigar, drinking a beer or whatever, and go, hey, you slug, why don't you get out and run like these other skinny Kenyans? And I'm like, he doesn't have a clue what's going to happen here, So, as I'm running by, like 7 hours later, he's on his porch, like knocked out. But there's so many stories, about when I ran it, and people actually yelling at me. You got to remember, they've been partying for a while, right? So they just think I started with everyone else, and here I come trugging along. And why don't you train next year? If you train, you might be able to run a little faster than the old guy, that kind of stuff. But over the years, they start to realize what's going on. And then, I don't know, about 8 to 10 years ago, I was running, and two guys were on a lounge chair in their front yard, and one guy started yelling at me, and the other guy gives him the elbow. He goes, hey, leave him alone. That's the race director. And I said, finally, I made, I made it in life. They recognize who the heck I am after 25 years of doing this. So
do you get
cool.
a lot of people these days like looking out for you?
Now, yeah. I mean, there are people. Here comes Dave. They run out in their porch and stuff like that, or people driving by beeping. Could be a lot of runners who might live in the area and finished and got in their car and they're driving home and they drive the course in the reverse way, and then they see me and they do their
That's
thing
cool.
and all that. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And there are times when a lot of the local police departments, they send motorcycles out or cruisers out just to help me out a little bit and stuff, because I've worked with them all year. And so, it's pretty cool.
We could talk about Boston for many, many, many episodes, I'm sure, and hear all the stories. But I want to. What's up, Erica?
Before we switch topics from Boston, I had my one chance to run Boston so far, and it was a dream. So I just have to say thank you for putting on such a wonderful event, and I loved every minute of it. And just thank you for what you do. This is awesome, and I know so many runners feel the same way.
Yeah. Well, team effort. It's not, I'm just a caretaker. I mean, it was here before I was born, just taking care of it for a while. And
well, thanks to you and the volunteers, everybody. Like
everyone,
you said, team effort.
Yeah, thank you.
She ran it in 2018 when it rained, and rained.
I was there. I know.
And
but all the volunteers showed up, and it was miserable for everybody. So
worse for them than us. Yeah,
great. Exactly. They were out there for way longer than I was.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then I'm gonna pump her tires a little more. Just 2 weeks ago, less than that, she ran the Tokyo Marathon and got her
6-star.
That's right.
I know. That's awesome.
So I'm in good company. We got a couple
I haven't done that yet. My problem is I direct so many races during the year that I'm directing events when these other races are going on, and I can't go to them, So all I've done so far is Boston and New York, but I'm going to run Boston this year, and then I'm going to jump on a plane a few days later and head to London, and I'll scoop London, so I'll have 3. Awesome. And then I might do Chicago in October that before, and then maybe next year try to scoop up the other 2. I don't know.
There you go.
That's all this year. That's so cool.
Yeah. All in a year, yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm so excited to follow that journey now. But I want to hear a little more about your journey from years past. So I'm going to jump into DeLorean and hit 88. That's something I like to say. Let's go back to your first Ironman World Championships, which I think was the 3rd ever in Hawaii.
It was. Yeah. So I had run across the country in 78, and then in 79, Sports Illustrated, the May issue, had a story about the Ironman in Hawaii. I think 15 folks did it. And I read about it. As soon as I read it, I said, right up my alley, I want to do this. But I had 2 problems. One is I didn't know how to swim, and I didn't own a bike. So I figured, remember what your grandfather said, you got to earn the right to do this,
Yeah.
So I made a commitment, and I said, I'm going to do it. So 2 other guys from New England decided to go over with me. And it was actually in the end of January, in January sometime. So we were training in November, December, and cold around here. And, it was hard to try to get fit for something like that at that time of year, whereas now it's in October, so you get all summer to train. So we went over there, and as soon as I went to the technical meeting 2 nights before the race, they said, okay, assume everyone has their own support crew. I'm like, huh? Yeah, you have to have your own support crew. I said, I don't have a support crew. I came by myself. They said, well, there's no aid stations out there. I said, what? And there's no directional marshals, volunteers, you got to take a map with you. And I'm like, what the heck? So they said, well, you got to get a support crew. You're not going to survive. And I said, well, how do I do that? And then they threw the phone book at me. They said, call someone. So I started calling people, and I got this guy who was a Navy SEAL with his daughter, his 10-year-old daughter. They came by my hotel, picked me up in this little Honda Civic or something. I had to put my bike on their roof and hold it as we were driving to the start. I mean, it was crazy, Phil. There was they weighed us in before we jumped in the water on a bathroom scale. Then they weighed us again when we get off the bike, and they weighed us twice on the run. They said, if you lose more than 10% of your body weight during the course of this event, we're yanking you. What? And so, the weirdest thing is, you're running a marathon, you got to get in line, you get on a scale for them to weigh you, and come on, clock's ticking, let's go. My Navy SEAL guy got caught in traffic, and I lost him, and I said, now I don't have a support team, but eventually I finished 14th out of 108, but it was just bump and grind. None of us knew what we were doing. Dave Scott won his first one that year, and so then I decided to go back in 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, and 89. I did it. And so it was good. But then I didn't do it again for 25 years, and I went back in 2014 and did it.
I was going to say recently.
Yeah. Well, I did it in 14 because in 2000, in 13, unfortunately, I was diagnosed with severe coronary artery disease. And, I was just trying to regroup from that. And I just said, I need something to focus on to get me even more fit and more healthy. And I called the Ironman and I said, any chance, I can jump in this year. And I had helped them out a lot over the years. And they said, yeah, whatever you want. So I said, all right. But then they said, yeah, but we heard about your coronary artery disease. So you need to get a note from your doctor. I said, what? A note from my doctor? I've never been asked for a note for what? You have coronary artery disease. We don't want you going down in the lava fields. So I went to my doctor and I said, hey, any chance I can get a note? He goes, no. I said, why? He goes, I don't want you going down in the lava fields either. I said, well, what's it going to take? He said, well, we have to do another CAT scan on you and see if you've improved, And I said, all right. So we did another CAT scan and he showed that I improved on my own by 30-40%, reversed my own coronary artery disease. He said, here's a note, 2014, for my 9th time. Then I wanted to go back this October to go, and they invited me, but then they decided to split it up and have the women do the race in Kona and the men in Nice. But I had always done it in Kona, in Hawaii. Yeah. And I said, I want to do it one more time, but I want to do it
in Kona.
Yeah. So the men are going to be doing Kona next year in 20. Those who didn't want to do the Nice race, do we want to defer it to 2024? And I said, yeah, I'll take the deferral. So my hope is to go back there in 2024 and do my 10th and probably be my final Ironman.
That would be so cool. I kind of agree. I kind of feel like, okay, Nice is cool and it's beautiful. But if it was me, if I made the Ironman World Championships, I would want to be in Kona.
I know.
My friend I've trained with for years, and he's in his 60s, and he finally just made Kona, and then it got delayed because of COVID and delayed again. But he was like, man, if they told me I was going to Nice, he's like, no way. It's all about Kona, baby. It's all about Kona. So
when it's hard, Kona's hard. It can be really, really hot, but it's the wind, and some years it's okay. In other years, man, it's brutal out there, right? When I went back in 14, it was awful. It was the worst of the 9 that I have ever done. And I'm like riding my bike. I'm going like 7 miles an hour. I'm not moving. I'm not going anywhere. And I said, this is awful. But, you slug through it and, eventually you get to the finish line, right?
It's a pretty cool feeling when Mike Riley calls your name across the finish line and says, you are an Ironman.
Yeah. So... And Mike and I go way back, even before his days at announcing at Hawaii. We both worked at Saucony Running Shoes, and I was director of promotions, and he was a salesman for Saucony. So we met way back in the 80s, and then eventually he got the job to announce in Hawaii, and announced me. I think the first time he announced was like either 88 or 89, Iowa with Dave and Mark, and that was the last time I did it until 2014 in 89. So he announced me in 89, and then he announced me again in 2014, and now he's not doing it anymore. So that's too bad, but whatever.
No, I'm real happy I got the call across the finish line in Mount Tremblant. I'll tell you this, I met Mike in 2019, about maybe 6 months before my first full Ironman, and he's doing a book signing, and he goes, Eric, I'm going to sign this for you, but you need to earn it in 6 months. When I call you across the finish, he goes, you need to put the work in and commit to it. And my training started 2 weeks later. I had a 20-week training plan. He goes, you need to earn this. I'm going to write it now. You are an Ironman, but you better go out there and earn it. And I did. And I was like, I can't fail. I got 17 hours to get this in. I did it in 13 flat. So I had a great day, and I can't wait to go back and do it again. Such a cool experience. I'm trying to get Erica to do her first triathlon, just a sprint one day.
Do a sprint,
But the problem with her,
I'm like you. I don't swim and I don't own a good bike, so I have some work to do.
But just like Dave and myself, we didn't know how to swim either when we started.
Yep,
it's a new learning curve. Triathlon for me was it came along right at the right time, because I had been running for the better part of 15 years or something, and not that I was burnt out, but But when I started triathlon, and I started spreading out the workload, between swimming, biking, and running, and not just all running. And I did triathlon probably for, I don't know, 15 years, 20 years or something like that. I was directing more. I directed about 160 triathlons. I directed the World Championship, the second World Championship. The first one was 89 in Avignon, France, and the second one was in the United States. I submitted a bid to direct it, and
was it in Sunapee?
The U.S. got the bid, and then I submitted a bid to direct it, and I won the bid to direct it, and then I put it on down at Walt Disney World in Florida, and that's when Karen Smythe won the World Championship and Greg Welch. Anyways, so triathlon, and then I did the Goodwill Games triathlon, USTS triathlons, I did Ironman distance triathlons, directed them, all that kind of stuff. But so I was like really into triathlon. I was repping the best triathletes in the world: Dave Scott, Mike Peake, Aaron Baker, Scott Molina, just all Jan Ripple. I was representing the best triathletes in the world back in those days. So I was really into it. And I just, I did a lot of them. And I think it just helped prolong my running by me cutting back a little bit on the running part and then giving some to the swimming and biking. And that just kept things. And that's why, I'm 165,000 miles into running. And orthopedically, I'm good. Most people my age who've done these silly things, artificial hips, artificial knees, they're not running anymore. Knock on wood.
Keep it up. I am so impressed.
Erica, I will let you ask the next question because I feel like I've asked a few more.
I was going to say, all right. So I think we need to jump back in that DeLorean because we keep skipping over all these fun things to talk about. So you've mentioned a few times now that you ran across America in 1978. So what sparked that idea for you?
Well, again, it was right at the time when, I was going through a little bit of that rejection stuff and had become a runner and then wanted to really challenge myself. And I had read about a friend who had biked across the country from Medford, Mass to Medford, Oregon. And I just said, well, if he can bike across, I can run across, which was an idiotic comparison. Biking and running are a little different, but
just a little more time consuming too, right?
But I was a runner, not a biker. So I said, I'm going to research this. I'm going to train. I'm going to earn the right. I'm going to plan the whole thing. And that's at a time when, no computers, no emails, no texting, no online, everything by typewriter and, mailing things out to state police all over the country and waiting a month to get a reply and all that kind of stuff. So it was crazy trying to just manage it. I lost more weight organizing it than I did running across the country itself, right? But so I did. So I started ceremonially in the Kingdome during a Red Sox Seattle Mariners game. It was a weird feeling. I was running around the Kingdome and there's 50,000 people cheering for me, but I hadn't done anything yet, right? So they're cheering, but I didn't I felt like I don't deserve this because I haven't done anything, and I know why they were cheering. I get all of that. So, but that was pretty cool. And then I was doing it for the benefit of the Jimmy Fund in Boston. And at the time I was working in the Hancock Tower in downtown Boston. And I looked out the window one day and I saw Fenway Park and I saw a sign out in right field said, help make a dream come true, support the Jimmy Fund. I wasn't even sure what the Jimmy Fund was, but I knew I had to do this for a greater purpose than myself because I don't know if I could have gotten myself through this just on my own, just for a personal goal. So I went and I visited with the kids, and I knew at the time that the battle that I was about to fight by running over 5.5 million footsteps across America was in no way as difficult as the battle that these kids are fighting for their own life. And I saw a sign in the Jimmy Fund clinic. It said, God made only so many perfect heads. The rest of them have hair on it. And it just made me realize that these kids have more courage and more guts than I'll ever have, that they have a will to want to live and fight And so I said, I got to do this. I got to do this for them. And Runner's World said a few years later, it was the first time someone had combined running and raising money for cancer research.
Oh, wow.
Way before, Live Strong and Team and Train, just all of that. I mean, no one was doing fundraising like that, especially for cancer research. So anyways, I did it. So, I flew out, went to the Kingdom, did that, flew down to Medford, Oregon, and then on June 11th, 1978, I took off. And I, ran California, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, Nebraska, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, and Massachusetts. 11 states, 80 days, 3,452 miles. I was basically averaging 45, 50 miles every single day, no days off, no matter what the conditions were, 120 degrees in the desert, 14,000 feet through the Rockies, whatever, all kinds of stories, obviously, running across America with vehicular traffic and people and just everything. But I finished on August 29th, 1978, ran into Fenway Park in front of 32,000 people. And it was funny, the Red Sox said, come out of the Green Monster, the left field wall, run around the warning track, finish at home plate, say a few words, and exit the park. Okay, fine. Now I come out of the left field wall, and the crowd was going berserk, screaming and yelling because they had heard about this for 3 months, right? And here he is, And so I kept going around and around. The Red Sox called the police on me. Get this guy off the field. We got to stop. But that's when I realized I was the athlete I always wanted to be. I always wanted to play second base at Fenway Park. And never got the chance. So if I wasn't going to play in Fenway, I was going to run in Fenway. And I finally ran into Fenway Park and probably got an ovation that I never would have gotten as a ball player. And so that was the run across the country in 78. And then I ran up the East Coast of America in 1980 with a fellow by the name of Bob Hall. Was the pioneer of wheelchair racing in America, and he's the first one to do Boston in a wheelchair. He and I decided to run side by side up the East Coast. So he pushed a wheelchair and I ran next to him the entire way. And then it just took off. I started doing all these other, 24-hour swims, 24-hour bike rides, 24-hour runs for the Jimmy Fund and other charities. And I did a triathlon around New England once where I swam a mile, biked 80, and ran 20 every day for 35 days all the way around New England, and finished at halftime of a New England Patriot football game in front of 60,000 people, raising money for charity. And anyways, just kept on doing those crazy things.
I totally support the crazy things idea.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you seem really good with numbers. Like, how many miles this was and how many miles that was. Do you know how many millions you've raised over the years?
Well, there's two ways that I've helped raise money. One is just personally, doing a lot of these different things. And, that's in the 3 or 4 million. But, with all the events that we have created, DMSC Sports, my business, we started this thing called the Boston Marathon Jimmy Fund Walk. I helped start it. And that's been going on for 35 years now. And that's raised about $140 million. So I really feel, did we raise that money? No, but we helped create an event that has raised that kind of money. Well, it's the same with hundreds and hundreds of events that we have either helped manage or we have actually conceptualized and directed that has, created this amount of fundraising and philanthropy. And that's in the 300-400 million of dollars. So I'm not giving personal credit for any of that, but I think there's
big part of it, though.
There's an involvement in it for sure.
That is absolutely, absolutely incredible. So let's see where we're at here. Ooh, so I know you are a marathon runner. You are an excellent ultra runner, just hearing about all these adventures. But I am super interested to hear in your World Marathon Challenge.
Yeah. So
I need to know logistics. This is mind-blowing to me.
Well, a friend of mine, his name is David Sampson. He was at the time the president of the Miami Marlins baseball team, and good friend who had run Boston. He had done Ironman once. He was on Survivor, all this.
Oh, wow.
Anyways, he called me up one day and said, have I ever heard of the World Marathon Challenge? And I said, yeah, of course. And he said, well, would you like to do it? And I said, David, it's a $47,000 entry fee.
Wow. So that's one thing.
We said, no, don't worry about the money. I'm bringing a bunch of people, and we've got that covered. Do you want to do it? And I said, of course, sign me up. And this was probably, I don't know, a year before it, that we were going to do it and stuff. So then I said to myself, well, again, remember, you got to earn the right in a long time. So I said, well, before I commit to you, I said, let me just take a week and see what I can do. What are you talking about? Never mind. Just So on one week, on Monday, I went out, ran a marathon around my neighborhood. The next day I woke up, ran another marathon around my neighborhood. Next day I woke up, ran another marathon around my neighborhood. Then I said, okay, let's do some halves. So I did 3 halves in a row. And then on the 7th day, I went out and ran the Boston Marathon course. So I ran 4 marathons and 3 halves in 7 days. And I just said, I think I got it. And so some people who knew I was training for it said, aren't you doing a lot of miles, training too much too soon? I said, I'm not training. I said, what do you mean you're not training? I said, no, I'm trying to get my head on straight, like that I can do this. Because I don't want to get in Antarctica and realize that I overcommitted here. If I can't do this in my neighborhood, I'm not going to do it all over the world. So I knew I had the running down, right? So I got that. But it's the rat race in between. It's like, I don't know. So there was 50 of us that year, 2018, from all over the world. We all met in Cape Town, South Africa, stayed there for a couple of days, got all our instructions and whatnot. Okay, it's time to go. First race is in Antarctica, has to be, because it's the one most prone to weather that could delay the event. And if you're going to delay the event, you want to delay the first one, not the third one. You only have 168 hours, the clock's ticking. So we got to get Antarctica done first, and then we crank out the other 6. So, okay, we're going to go on a Tuesday. We flew down there at like 6 in the morning, got there, it was a 6.5-hour flight, got there, started running around 3 in the afternoon. Boom, boom, boom. It was, 10 degrees, 20 degrees below zero, wind chill, whatever it was, round and round we go, a circular course. And we did that one, get back on the plane, flew back to Cape Town, get off the plane, get on a bus, driven to a venue, 85 degrees, this one, run the next marathon, out and back, out and back, out and back.
Finish, like night and day, oh my God.
Yeah. So then get back on a bus, get back at the airport, back on a plane, flew to 12 hours to Perth, Australia, get off the plane, on a bus, to the venue, run the marathon, back on the bus, back on the plane, off we go to Dubai. Same thing there. Off we go to Portugal, to Colombia, and Cartagena in Colombia, run a marathon there, and then off we go to Miami and finished up in Miami at South Beach. So 7 marathons, 7 days, 7 continents. I mean, for me, it was weird because every race I was running for tomorrow. In other words, normally when you run a race, you peak, you run hard, you run harder, and then you gut and leave nothing in the tank. When you cross the finish line, fall down and make a scene. Here, you couldn't do that because you had to run another one in about 8 hours, right?
Oh, man.
Plan it. And so, how you ran was critical. Then you had to recover at 35,000 feet, right? Up on an airplane.
How do you really do that comfortably, too? Exactly, yeah.
You don't. You might have compression boots, you might have rollers, you're sitting next to someone, you're trying to, and then, once you land, you get out of the seat and you can't even walk, right? You're like, oh man, my legs are so stiff. But eventually you loosen up and you go run another marathon. So for me, it was sleep deprivation. I couldn't sleep that well. And I figured after 3 marathons, I'd be so exhausted, I just conk out. Didn't happen. Then I thought, this is what's going to get me, sleep deprivation. I'm not going to be able to get the sleep I need to run the next one. And I didn't get the sleep, but I still was able to run and get it done. And then nutrition was another one, because it wasn't like you were going out to restaurants or anything and having 4-course meals. You ate the plain food. You brought some stuff with you, but you couldn't bring everything. So whatever they served you is what you ate. You got to deal with it. And then, so all of that, waiting at customs at the airport, it wasn't like we just walked onto a plane. We had to go through what everyone else went through. You got all your luggage and you're waiting in line for an hour and all that. Clock's ticking. You're going, oh my God, are we going to make this? But it was great. It was, in my last 10 miles in Miami were my fastest 10. So, I was actually getting stronger as we were moving on versus breaking down. I wasn't running so intensely and so fast that I was running 4:30 pace, right? For 4 hours, 30 minutes. So it wasn't like running 2:30 or something. So it didn't do a lot of damage, actually. So
did you have a race like cutoff for the actual race? Like you had to complete it within X amount of hours?
They said I think he said 7 hours because everyone was waiting for you. Like if someone
you got time crunch. Yeah.
We got, let's go, Fred. We got to get on the plane and get the heck out of here, right? So, I think there were a couple times, maybe once or twice, where someone had to be pulled because, we had to leave. We had to get on the plane and go to the next one. Well, because the faster everyone gets done, the faster you can take off, and the more time you have to do the next one.
I think you kind of answered my next question, but you said there's 50 of you. So my question was going to be, you all travel together and do everything together, the buses, the airplanes. Are you on your own? Is it just the 50 of you in one airplane? Or are you on with other normal citizens? Or
no, it's a chartered flight.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, the race organizer rents that plane. There's 2 planes. There's one from Cape Town to Antarctica, and that's typically a Russian military jet because that's the only thing that can land there. But then that takes you back, and then you get on a chartered jet, and we stay on that plane that's our hotel for the week. We stay on that plane for the whole rest of the time. They change crews. I think they changed crews in Dubai or something. That the same crew wasn't taking care of us the whole way, but it was the same plane.
So during this week, you never actually laid down in a real bed.
No, they did allow us to check into a hotel room to shower, to change if we had time, and then we had to get going. But we never slept in a bed overnight or anything like that. No, you slept on the plane.
Were you allowed to bring a support crew or just anybody?
But you got to pay for them, and it's about the same amount.
$47K.
Yes, I didn't cut the deal, so I don't know if a support group got a little discount, but
I don't even think my first real job made $47K.
Oh, man.
Yeah, what happens is a lot of people commit to this, then they do these fundraisers and
get
they
sponsors
do all
and stuff, right?
And get sponsors and all that. But I mean, it's not. I don't think just the rich and famous do this because they're the only ones that can afford it. I think people generally commit and then go raise the money if they don't have it themselves. Yeah.
That is just insane. I love it though.
Yeah.
That would be on my someday bucket list. Someday.
It's on your bucket list. It's on our bucket list.
Would I do it? The only reason why, if I were to do it again, that I would do it again is now knowledge is king, and now I feel like, okay, now I know how to do this. Let me do it a second time, and it'll be a lot quote unquote easier. I don't know, but there's
experience.
There's been a couple of people who've done it more than once. I don't know if anyone's done it 3 times, but I did it. The year I did it was the 3rd year. So right now there's only been, and then COVID knocked out 1 or 2. There's only been about 7. It's happened 7 times or something. So.
Okay.
Wow.
So I'm wearing a T-shirt. I don't know you can see it, the Goffstown Gallop. I don't know if you know what the Gallop is, but it's Erica's favorite race. It's her hometown race.
It
and
is,
this past June, I ran my first Goffstown Gallop. And at that race, I'm standing there at the start-finish line. And David French, as Erica pointed out, says on my shirt, he's the race director, and he makes a comment saying, we are in the presence of greatness. And he goes, Mike Beeman is here to run in the Goffstown Gallop. And I look to my left, and there's Mike Beeman, and he's waving. He's 3 feet from me, and I know nothing about Mike Beeman. And the guy goes on, and he starts talking about Mike Beeman, and I'm like, Mike, after the race, Mike, I got to talk to you. Can I have your phone number? Can we talk? Can I get you on? I'm doing this fun podcast. I want people to come on and tell us their stories. And so he came on, and he told us some amazing stories, and one of them was he ran at Merrimack College with you.
Yeah, well, so I ran at Medford High School and then applied to colleges and get into a whole bunch of them, but decided to go to Merrimack. So when I got there, I went into the athletic director's office and I said, hi, my name's Dave and I want to join the cross country team. And he said, oh, well, there is none. There's no cross country team. And I said, well, there is now.
I love it.
Yeah.
And I said, you got any uniforms, anything? He goes, just basketball. I said, I'll take your smallest basketball singlet, and I'm your man. That's how the cross-country team started. And so one of the priests at the college used to drive me to cross-country meets. Me and him, that's it. And
That's so
I
cool.
represented the college at these cross-country meets. There was no one else. And it was funny because Mike, I forget when we actually met at the school, but he was more of a basketball player than he was a runner at the time. And, you know, I got to know him a little bit, but I didn't know him that well. But I never, ever thought of him as like a long distance runner. Like, because I always thought he's more of an athlete than he is not that a runner's an athlete, but he's more team sport athlete than a runner. And then, you know, we graduated from college and off went in different directions. And then somehow we reconnected again. And he was telling me that he ran in the Boston Marathon a bunch of times. I said, really? You have? He goes, yeah. I said, wow, that's great. And all of a sudden, keeps doing it and keeps doing it and keeps doing it. I'm like, what the heck is going on with this guy? He's amazing, right? And now I think he's got, I don't know, like
45.
5? Yeah. 45. And I'm
Is he going to
like,
be 46 this year? Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm like,
hope so.
whoa, you know, because I did it. Let's see, I did it every year at Merrimack, right? So when I was 18 so senior in high school, 17, I didn't make it. So freshman in college was my first year as an 18-year-old. So I had done 4 in college and then out of college, kept going. So he hadn't, then if I have 5 more than him, then he hadn't started running when I was at Merrimack. He had not run the Boston Marathon when I was at Merrimack, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So that's why he never really registered with me that he was doing it, because he didn't do it when I was there.
If I remember his story right, he went to watch you run in the Boston Marathon one year. Just like, hey, I'm going to go watch, and I know a guy running. And he said, this will be the last time I ever watch the Boston Marathon.
Yeah.
And he went and ran it the next year and every year since. And so I said to him, I go, hey, when you do hang up the shoes, if the day ever comes, will you go watch again? He goes, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe. But I bring up Mike, though, one, because you know him, but 2, he has this story. And I know we already talked about and I am terrible at pronouncing things, but coronary artery disease.
Yeah.
Mike had an injury when the doctor told him, you will never run again. And he defied the odds. He was first like, well, okay, my run is up, but then he was able to build the strength again, and he was able to do it, and he ran the Boston Marathon again in 2013. It was the year of the bombing. But he was told he was never going to run again from a major injury. So coronary artery disease isn't like a major injury. It's a major issue going on in here. So What was that like when you first heard you had this disease? And did you know, like, if you were going to do, I love that you called it a little runathon. Did you
Yeah.
know what was ahead of in your
Well,
future? Or
so the year of the bombing is when I was diagnosed, right after the bombing. And I would go out for a run and I could feel some difficulty breathing and discomfort in my chest. And I said, it's a nothing, right? Because like we're invincible, right? And we can run through anything. So, but it persisted, and I just said, I better do something about this. So I went to Mass General Hospital and had all these tests done. Echocardiograms, pulmonary tests, stress tests, EKGs, blah, blah, blah. And the doctors all basically said the same thing. We can't find anything. There's nothing wrong with you. I said, yes, there is. I can't breathe when I'm running. And I said, guys, you got to look under the hood. You got to give me the big boy tests. So they gave me a CAT scan and then an angiogram and being table. And he like, there, and there. I said, there what? He said, there you have severe coronary artery disease. I said, no, really, what's going on? Don't kid with me. I'm not kidding with you. I said, how can I have that? I've been done all these Ironman and run across the, he goes, I don't know. I said, genetics? He goes, maybe. I said, self-inflicted? He says, only you can answer that. I said, yeah, I probably broke some rules. And so I turned to him and I said, listen. He goes, what? I said, zip it up. He goes, what? I said, don't tell anyone. He said, why? I said, because it's a ding in my armor. I said, I don't want anyone to know that I'm ill. Because a lot of them are going to think that it's from my running. He runs too much. That's what happens. Or, see, even though he runs, he can't, but he can still get sick. See, running's not that good for you. I said, I don't want anyone to know. Of course, it leaks out. People know. And then I'm getting all these emails from people saying, I heard about you and I had the same symptoms. And I said, if it can happen to him, it can happen to me. And so I went in and got checked, and I walked out of the hospital with 3 stents. And you saved my life. I went, what? I saved your life? And so I started saying to myself, quit being so selfish. And you're a wah-wah because you don't want people to think you're ill, but you can help save lives by creating an awareness. So I just said, oh, okay, I'll let people know what happened. But I also turned to the doctor that day and I said, I got a question to ask you. He said, what? I said, is this reversible? He said, it depends. I said, what's it depend on? He said, it depends on the person. I said, what are you looking at? I'm right here, over here, McFly. He goes, oh, you and your discipline, I think you can have an impact on your own illness. I said, well, sign me up. And that's when I just went crazy and changed my diet, my nutrition, sleep habits. I always thought sleep was overrated. I always wanted to get the most out of every day. What do I need sleep for? Stress, the bombing, all that added up. And that's when I decided I wanted to go back to Hawaii, do the Ironman, and went back and did the Ironman and all that. And then I did the World Marathon Challenge, and I got myself in the best shape of my life. But I did learn a lesson that just because you're fit doesn't mean you're healthy. And I always thought it did. But I was getting really fit and really healthy, did the World Marathon Challenge, came back. All of a sudden I could feel the difficulty in my chest again. I said, what the heck? I thought I beat this. Went back, had another angiogram, and the doctor said, you have 95% blockage in your main artery. I said, how'd that? He said, you can't run away from your genetics. I said, okay. I said, well, what are my options? He said, well, we can do nothing, but you're going to have to live a sedentary life and not stress your body. I said, cross that off. Mm-hmm. He said, we can stent it, but it's risky. I said, nah, you're not going to risk my heart. He said, oh, we can do open heart surgery. And I said, nah, I don't like that either. I don't want you to cut me open. He goes, well, you've run out of options. I said, well, that's when I said to him, well, there's this little race in Boston in 6 months. What do you think? And he didn't say yes, and he didn't say no. He said, I'd be extremely disappointed if you couldn't do it. And it gave me that 4-letter word, hope. And I said, okay, let's go for it. And so we did open heart triple bypass surgery, and I had to recover and walking around the cardiac ward in a walker. It was funny. I turned to the nurses and I said, hey, how many laps around the cardiac ward for a mile?
That would be me.
I said 20. I said, I'm going to set the record. I set the record for a mile in the cardiac ward at Mass General Hospital in a walker. 4 days later, I'm out of there. And then I trained and recovered and delicate balance. And I said, the marathon's important to me, but it's not that important. It's going to cost me my life. So, be smart about this. And then 6 months later, I ran my 47th, I think, Boston, finished it. And that's what happened. And here I am, nine marathons later, I think it is. I'm alive.
Yeah, amazing. Absolutely amazing, Dave.
You are an absolute inspiration, just for the people to get out in your community and to raise money for good causes, to take care of your body, just be healthy, to have hope, to just those are all good messages, and I'm glad that you brought them to us so we can share with our listeners. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
What you
Erica,
got?
Erica, I forgot to pick a random picture. So I'm going to let you ask. Okay, so I'm going to lead us into the last few questions.
Sure,
Dave.
sure,
we
sure.
won't keep you forever.
We're wrapping up. I think we covered pretty much everything that we wanted to, except I don't know if Eric mentioned to you, when we close the show, just hang on for a minute and don't hang up, because it needs to upload our audio and stuff after. So
I found my random picture. Okay, cool. All right, what we do is at the end I find a random picture, and Erica's going to ask you what song to add to a playlist that she's created. So let me lead into this here. Dave, this has been an amazing hour plus so far. We could talk to you for hours and hours and hours. I mean, there's so much on your rap sheet that you sent me. 24 hours in a swimming pool, my body would be all pruned up. I don't know how. I want to hear about that one day. I'm hoping we could have you back again maybe in a year before the next Boston Marathon, but we have a couple big questions before we go. One is, I go on your Instagram and I find a random photo that I find interesting, and I ask you about it. And so the one I found is a guy I watch on YouTube quite a bit, and I really enjoy watching his videos. It's you and Bob Babbitt. I love Babbittville. And so I don't know, do you got a quick Babbitt story for me or something I could ask? Usually there's a story behind the photo, but that's just a picture of the two of you. So tell me a little bit about Bob, because I think Bob is amazing, and I would love to watch him one day.
Well, I met Bob at the 1980 Ironman Triathlon in Oahu. Never knew who he was at the time, and he was one of the 108 of us back then. So we all, those of us who did it that year, have this special bond because it was the last time it was in Oahu and all that. So that's when we became friends. I mean, we met each other there and stayed in touch, and then he started with the competitor magazine and all that kind of stuff. And then, he started his little Elvis gig, and he wanted to run Boston. And I said to him, all right, I'll get you into Boston, but I didn't know about Elvis at the time. Right. And so I got him a waiver in, and so I said to him, did you run? And he goes, yeah, I ran. I said, you got any pictures to prove it? And he shows me a picture of him as Elvis. I'm like, you ran as Elvis? I had no idea, right, that he would do something like that at the Boston Marathon, dress up like that, But all kidding aside, what he has given to the sport, especially of triathlon, is, it's him and Riley and a bunch of guys like that, that really have helped make the sport what it is today. So he's a dear friend.
He's awesome. I love his videos. One of my favorites I ever watched was actually when he's doing the videos at your Boston Marathon 2018, when he had Tim Don on after his accident in Kona only 9 months before, and he had the halo. It was amazing. So I love Babbittville, but I'm going to let Erica go ahead and ask her big question.
Yeah.
I just have a quick comment about the Elvis costume. I just out in Tokyo a few weeks ago, I saw a guy running as Elvis, and I got some videos of him going like, hey, and I went up and I go, go Elvis, go, and he goes, yeah, mama, and so I got some selfies with an Elvis.
That's awesome.
It was really fun, so I'm glad. I really appreciate when people do that on courses too, where they're just there for the fun of it. They're gonna like cheer everybody up around you and just Go on
There's
that
the
stuff.
one guy. There's the
So
one guy
good.
who runs the Disney Marathon dressed up as Jack Sparrow, full outfit and everything.
Oh my God! Can you imagine how
them
warm
all.
that must be? I
Oh
just
my God.
can't with that. But
can do it.
good for everybody. So, also, is it too late? Like, do you have any interest in talking about your books? Because I know we have talked about like the Run Across America, but you wrote a children's book about that, and your 7 Marathons challenge and Dream Big. Did you want to plug that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I first wrote a book called The Last Pick, and because when I was a kid, I was always the last pick. So people ask me what that book is about, and I always say it's about everyone who's reading it, because everyone can identify with it, because none of us are always the first pick. We all have our own challenges and hurdles to to deal with in life. No one's immune from anything like that, and so it's just a matter of, I just express what I've gone through in my life, and people can identify with it, and hopefully they can pull out some nuggets of wisdom from it. And then I wrote Dream Big, because when I was little, but I had big dreams. And so it's a matter of just setting goals and not limits, and again, earning the right. And so Dream Big is about my first 2 attempts at the Boston Marathon, and what the end result was, and how that sort of catapulted me to continue to set goals. And then Running Across America is obviously about my run across the United States, and then Finish Strong is about the World Marathon Challenge. But in all those books, there are teaching moments in there. It isn't just about this kid who did all this running. And then at the end, I have what's called the Dream Big Marathon Challenge, which is challenging the kids. I don't want them to read the book, put it down, and just go play ping pong. I want there to be a call to action. Like, I want them to read the book, be inspired, and then have something very specific that now they can go attempt to do themselves. So the Dream Big Marathon Challenge is just, running 26 miles over 26 days or 26 months or whatever, reading 26 books, and then finishing up and doing 26 acts of kindness.
Oh, I
And
love
then,
it.
and then mail it to me. And then I mail them a Dream Big Marathon medal.
No
And
way.
I've had thousands and thousands of kids across America, in school systems all over the country, doing the Dream Big Marathon Challenge right now. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I'm going to do this with my daughter. What is the age you think of someone reading the book? My daughter's in 1st grade. She just started reading. My boys, they're 2 years old. I have 2-year-old twins. They're a little too young to read right now, but
Yeah, well, what I've altered it a little bit and said, instead of 26, just do the number of years of your age. So if you're 8 years old, read 8 books, run 8 miles, and do 8 acts of kindness, that kind of a thing. But the books are generally from age 5 to 11, something like that.
oh, it's perfect. And I said she's 6. I lied. She just turned 7 the other day.
There it is.
It just happened. You're fine.
Lack of sleep and up all nights of the week. My boys were super sick last week, and I was home by myself. It's just, I'm so happy to be here in a hotel room to do this with no one else to bug me except an air conditioning unit that won't turn off for some reason.
All right.
All right. So now I can get to my final question. Thank you for answering all those questions, by the way. But we have a Spotify playlist, and it's loaded with songs. Like, we like to ask our interviewees if they'd like to add something. It could be anything inspiring or just anything that pumps you up and gets you motivated to get out the door, get those miles in. And yeah, would you like to add a song?
I'm going to show you something. 1 second.
Oh, yes. I love this.
Sure.
So you're going to think you already think I'm weird and strange and crazy.
We
We're
love
all
you,
weird.
Dave. You're awesome.
But,
Weird is cool.
Everyone, and I get it, everyone is inspired by music, almost everyone, so it seems. And people go out and run and listen to music, right? I mean, for the most part, right? And I get it. I don't do that. I go out and with this.
Oh, I heard this. I heard this story.
I go out with this every single day, and it's just a voice recorder. And the way I roll is I multitask when I go run. A lot of times I don't feel like running. In fact, 3 days ago was my second year anniversary of running every day without missing a day. I challenged myself 2 years ago to run a year and just see if I can run every single day without missing a day of 3.5 miles. And I did it. And the next day I woke up and I ran again. And the next day I ran again. And then all of a sudden now I'm at 2 years. I'm not at 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 because I just started it 2 years ago. So I can't be that far along yet. But I've run every single day for 2 years plus. Anyways, so for the last 30 years, 35 years, I've run with a voice recorder. So I take off and I start just getting into my head about a marathon. Boston's coming up in a month. What haven't I done? What do I need to do? What agendas do I need to write? Blah, blah, blah. I want to call this one, write that one, do this, do that. My best thoughts come when I'm out on the road. Always. They just come out. I can't sit here and go, okay, come on out, good thoughts. They don't come. When I go out on the road, man, they're pouring out left and right. And if I, God forbid, forget it, I'll go out and I'll start thinking of stuff. And when I get home, it's just, they're gone. They're gone. I go, what was that? I get so frustrated, right? But I very rarely leave the house without this. So I know people like songs. I mean, I like when I was running across the country, running on empty, or I could tell you a million songs, but I don't do it. I run with a voice recorder.
That is fair.
I record, and then when I get home, I write down all the thoughts on notepads. And some of them are like, I can do today. Some are long-term, like I want to build something or create something. Well, I'm not going to get it all done today. And I put it down. And they don't go away until I check them off the list. And that's how I'm able to multitask, get the best possible ideas coming out of my head. I can run and then run 5 miles. Like today I ran like 5 miles. When I was done, I knew the loop I ran, but I don't remember it because I wasn't there. I wasn't there for the run. I was there for whatever it is I was working on. Right. And no pain, no issues, no nothing, because I felt great the whole way because I was somewhere else. Right. That kind of a thing. No headbutt. So I hear everything around me. So it's not dangerous or anything. I'm just recording things. Right. And then, like I said, I write them all down. And that's how I get done everything I get done, because I think of them, I record them, I write them down, and I do them.
Well, you are a man on a mission, and who am I to stop that? Good for you, Dave.
I know we've been going long, but I do have one final. I don't know if you noticed. I have this pen and I wrote because I haven't been in the office in weeks, so my notes I wasn't able to print. So I'm writing down all my notes on these little pieces of paper, right? And I'm crossing them off. And I have one note that I left for the very end. And so this is the On the Runs podcast, and we built that name because of when Erica and I would run our long distance runs. She was training for marathons. I was training for Ironmans. I would always have to pull over into the woods, and we called it a code brown. But a code brown can be anything. It can be any funny moment. It can be any sad moment or just a hard moment. So I think you have a good one, and it involves getting stuck in a porta potty.
Yeah. Well, again, as you get older, all of a sudden nature calls often. So one of the things at the start of the marathon that I demand is my own porta-john. And it's not just mine, but it's under a tent and no one can see it other than the only people that know I was using it frequently because I'm hydrating a lot because I'm going to run later on. But I don't want to have to go to the bathroom while I'm on the motor scooter that I'm riding for 2 hours. I can't just pull over, right? So I got to make sure that, I'm taking care of myself before the gunfires for me too. So it's under lock and key. So you go into the command post, grab the key. I opened it up. I put the key on this bumper of this 911 mobile unit, public safety unit. National Guard soldiers are there and state police are there and local Hopkinton police are there. And I go in and I guess I forgot to lock it in a sense so no one knows I'm actually in there. And unbeknownst to me, a National Guard soldier saw the lock on the bumper and he locked me in the porta-john.
Oh, no.
Not knowing I was in there. I had my two-way radio and I'm like, God, I can't get out. And it's 10 minutes before the start of the wheelchair race, and everyone's looking for me, like, where'd Dave go? And I'm trying to frantically, now helicopters are flying, so it's hard to hear even your two-way radio. And I'm frantically saying, I'm in the Porta-John. Someone let me out, let me out. This is 10 minutes before the start of the Boston Marathon. And I'm the race director. Like, this doesn't make any sense. And all of a sudden, I dropped the radio in the toilet.
No.
Then I'm like, okay, if I don't get that out of there, no one's going to know where I am. Like, I'm never going to get out of here.
Oh, no.
The only way to communicate now, because no one can hear me. I'm not going to knock the Porta-John over, that God forbid, right? So I can see the antenna of the radio, so I just grabbed it out and, was able to push a button in and say, hey, I'm in the, and they finally rescued me from the Porta-John, and things actually went off on time, but it was like really close.
Oh, no.
So that's my Porta-John story at the start of the Boston Marathon.
Oh man, I love it.
I have to say that's the most unique Code Brown story that we've had, because
I got
usually
plenty of
it's
them
something
nowadays.
involving a Porta-John in the other kind of ways, but
Right,
that's
right.
something I was not expecting.
Yeah.
Dave, you are amazing. Thank you
right, guys.
for parking next to Erica a couple weeks ago in
Right.
Derry.
I
That was
appreciate it.
yeah.
This is like a dream come true. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
It
All
really
right.
was. I hope you come back again. Don't hang up.
I will.
Just because I need it to upload, it will take 30 seconds. But thank you, Dave. This was, like Erica said, a dream come true. This was a big one for us. Thanks
So
for
much
helping
fun.
us out. Hope to have you back one day for more stories. Like I said, that rap
Anytime.
sheet is huge.
Anytime. Thank you.